All right, guys. Our next guest is the vice president of the biggest MMA company in Asia, ONE FC. He has held the UFC Middleweight Championship and has had exciting fights with the likes of Chuck Liddell, Anderson Silva, Wanderlei Silva, and many more. Returning to the show, we have none other than Rich Ace Franklin back on Submission Radio. Rich, how are you?
Hey, I'm doing really well. How are you guys doing, man?
Really good, really good. It's always great having you on the show. Rich, we recently saw you in the movie Mantervention. You played Coach Billings. Yeah, we're kicking it off with Mantervention. You know, it's a hilarious romp for those who haven't heard of the movie. You know, tell us a little bit about it. You know, what's your character like, and tell us about the movie.
Yeah, I was on set one day. Did a little filming in an MMA gym. It's about a guy who basically is dating this girl. He started dating this girl, and she pretty much controlled his life. He was practicing MMA at one point, quits the gym and all that kind of stuff, and basically giving up everything for her. And then they break up. He's heartbroken. His buddy is helping him out, taking through an intervention, but it's called Mantervention, and they're hanging out at his buddy's beach house, and he has to basically run him through all the steps, meeting girls, and so that he forgets about his ex-girlfriend, and he takes him back into the MMA gym. I was in it. The movie, KJ Noons played a small role in the movie. Daniel Cormier was in the movie as well.
Nice.
And he came in the gym, and there was just a little sparring scene between the two of us. It was kind of funny and a good little comedy. But yeah, had a good time. It's a really good movie, man, and they shot that movie in such a short amount of time. But it's funny, but it's not one that's necessarily appropriate for children, so don't take your kids to that one.
Keep your kids away from it. Now, of course, Rich, we're going to have to ask you this. Since Spencer had to go through all of that to get over his heartbreak, has Rich Franklin ever had an ex-girlfriend that he's had to be put through a Mantervention for to get over the tough breakup?
I've had. Well, I'll say this. I don't react to that stuff the way that Spencer did, but I've for sure had my share of heartbreak in the past and stuff like that. And then I'll tell you, man, emotional pain is probably as tough, if not tougher, to go through than physical pain for sure.
Yeah, we've been there, tough breakups, walking down dark streets, singing songs we never thought we'd sing, but enough of that. People have always compared you to Jim Carey, but will we be seeing Rich Franklin in more movies in 2015?
Possibly. Listen, I'm really busy with ONE Championship in Asia, doing the duties that I have for them, and my duties are ever so growing, and we're going from last year we did 12 shows, and this year we're shooting for 24 shows.
Wow.
I'm sure we'll do somewhere between 20 and 24 shows. But so that's keeping me very busy. I'm actually right now. I'm in Hawaii right now doing a little seminar with a group of Navy SEALs up here in Hawaii. But I was in Singapore. Actually flew here from Singapore because I was doing a little bit of work for ONE Championship down there. But yeah, I'm actively, not aggressively, but actively pursuing roles in movies, and much like my role in Mantervention, my roles I'll probably keep it to like small things that I can film that'll take a day or two or a week, or nothing that would keep me in filming for months. I have way too many other responsibilities in life with the things I have going on that I can just give up something for that extreme period of time.
Yeah, that's it. You're a busy man, Rich, and we'll get into some of the things that you're into later on in the interview. You brought up ONE FC, so let's talk about it. There's been some rapid growth with the company. Your champion, Ben Askren, is regarded as one of the best welterweights in the world. What's it like having Ben as the face of ONE FC? What's it been like so far?
I'll tell you, Ben, he's a funny guy, and because the funny thing about Asia is that Asians, they're typically they're not trash talkers. You don't see a lot of the trash talking, the hype of fight that you would see in the West. And so Ben brings a little bit of that to the table, but he's definitely got a unique way of going about it. He lives up to his nickname Funky for a reason. We have him slated, I think, on our Singapore card in May this year, and he's fighting Luis Santos. I might be confused now. But he's fighting Luis Santos for the title, and that's a tough matchup, man. It's going to be a really, really exciting fight, one that I'm really looking forward to seeing. So, but yeah, he'll definitely be tested in that fight for sure.
Yeah, no, we're absolutely looking forward to it. You know, you mentioned a lot of the Asian fans. You guys recently had a show in China at the end of 2014. We know China can be a little bit tricky. You know, what kind of reception did you guys get? How big is MMA becoming there?
We had a great reception in China, and in that show we did a 4-man tournament, and you know, we had our TV deal there and the arena deal and all that kind of stuff, and the night, it was an amazing night. Like in China, I'll tell you a funny story. The police were there to oversee the shutdown of the stadium auditorium, and they had strict rules for shutting the stadium down. And the night ended with the 4-man tournament, the finalists of the semifinals in the 4-man tournament that we did, and that final fight was as exciting, if not more exciting, than the original Stephen Meyer Forrest Griffin fight of days ago.
Wow.
And these guys were just everything. Like, you know, I think the police that were there to shut the stadium down completely forgot that they had a job to do and became so enthralled with the fight that it was an electric night, a great opening into China because it was our first show in Beijing. We're doing 10 more shows this year. We'll go to some tier 1 cities like Beijing and Shanghai and a couple others, but we're also going to hit some tier 2 cities across the nation, and I think it's going to be an amazing market for us. We had a great reception there. We had great ratings on television. Our rebroadcast actually beat out several NBA live broadcasts in China rating-wise, and so
Wow.
we're really pleased with the opening there and everything, and I think that's going to be a good territory for us.
Yeah, China's a huge market, so it's great to hear. Now, we were looking at some of the vacant titles that ONE FC has, and we're interested in asking you in particular about the super heavyweight title. Are you guys still planning on having a super heavyweight champion, and when do you foresee one being crowned, Rich?
I'll tell you what, that's going to be some time off, I would imagine. Even the heavyweight title, it's just, we're in Asia, and the fighters, you know, when you start looking at like bantamweight, featherweight, and even our lightweight categories, like when you start working your way down to the 55ers and below, like we're stacked with a lot of good talent. We have a lot of fighters, good fighters, like Thai fighters that came out of Thailand that have learned how to grapple and stuff like that. Like just guys that have some good experience. But as you get into the heavier weight classes, the talent pool gets a little more sparse. So I would imagine like just like a super heavyweight title match, we're probably some time off of that. Like it's going to take time to develop some depth in that weight category.
And I just want to double check, you know, when we spoke to you last time, I think last time we spoke may have been July, you know, you were talking about how you were sort of getting your feet planted in your new role as, you know, president there. You know, how are you finding that role in general, Rich?
It's interesting because in a company, like when you look at a fight organization, the fight organization is unique in the sense that there are fighters, there's talent in the fight organization. The fighters, the ring girls, those kind of people. And then there are like executives and staff. And oddly enough for me, within this company, I kind of fall into both roles. Like I'm part talent because I'm a recognizable figure, but I also work outside of the cage. And so I handle responsibilities in generally in both areas. I do quite a bit of PR, some broadcasting stuff, some social media stuff as kind of a talent because I'm a recognizable face. But then on the business side of things, like, and I think I've said this before, we have a strong grassroots development through ONE Championship, working with local gyms and local partners in each territory that we go to, helping to build fighters and that basically feed into our leagues for us. You know, we work with gyms that feed into amateur shows, and these amateur shows help create fighters that then come into ONE Championship. And so I help with that and conducting seminars and fighter development and talent scouting. And of course, Matt Hume does, you know, he's the guy that's really deep in all that, and he does the matchmaking, and he does an amazing job. The fights that we do, we have very, very exciting cards. Like I've never been to a ONE Championship fight where I walked away and said like, those fights were okay. Like pretty much every fight on the card is just an exciting fireworks kind of fight. But on my side of things, like I'm starting to do a little bit of stuff with business development and the relationships that we have with other partners and companies outside of the cage, and more of a business manner. So my role is starting to shape up there. I'm really pleased and happy with the things that they have going on for me. And I think for myself, with this year, with growth, we're doubling the number of shows that we're doing, and the responsibilities of our employees it's very demanding. And anytime you're in a business like this that has this kind of growth, that's what ends up happening. So I think some of the business that our CEO, is unable to handle just due to the workload, some of that gets pushed my direction, and so I take on projects here and there. And but no, I'm really enjoying my role there. I like the team that I work with. I said that before. They're very hungry, very vision oriented. They have a great vision of growth and in this region, and we're making things happen as you can see with this year unfolding.
Yeah, it sounds like you're taking care of business, Rich. Very excited for that. Now, Rich, we owe you a big congratulations as you turned the big 4-0 in October last year. So congratulations.
Appreciate you bringing that up. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. We have to we build you up, Rich. We build you up. We break you down, and then we build you up. Hopefully by the end of the interview.
Yeah, I got you. It's like a good movie role. You know what I mean? Like that. It can't be all good, but no. Yeah, I did. I turned 40 in October, and so but I feel good at 40. I feel good at this age, and my body's in great shape, man.
You put us to shame. We're in our 20s, Rich. I mean, big 40, very, very impressive. Now, every time you come on the show, every time you go on any show, it's always the big question that's being asked. And we have to ask it, Rich, whether we like to or not. You turned 40. You're very, very busy with your businesses. Last time we spoke, you weren't sure about it. You had that one last fight left in the UFC contract. What's going on? Are you leaning more towards being done with MMA now because you've got all these responsibilities and all these businesses? Or is it still something that you're looking to do?
Oh, man. I'm going to give you the same answer that I did before.
You can't. You already gave us that answer. You have to change it up a little bit.
I know. I'll tell you this much. Let me just tell you what has changed since the last time we spoke. Pretty much nothing. I basically train every single day of my life, whether I'm not spending as much time as training now as I would if I were getting ready for a fight, obviously. But, I'm still putting in somewhere between 10 and 15 work hours a week in the gym, whether I'm doing conditioning or I'm in actually working with a boxing or kickboxing coach and doing pad work or sparring or grappling or whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm still putting this time in. So I have those days like I'm training all the time, and there's that part of me that's like, man, I'm training all the time. Why not? But again, my responsibilities that I have in other avenues, and like I said before, man, that clock is just tick, 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 ticking away. I'm very driven on the job that I have right now with One Championship, and it would definitely take something special to pull me away from that. But I'm still open to the possibility of doing my last fight for sure.
Yeah, and obviously you're a big part of ONE FC. I mean, the question that a lot of fans are wondering is it a certainty that if you had your last fight, it would be in the UFC, or is there a possibility you could possibly fight for ONE FC or even a Bellator?
Yeah, no, I as of right now, I have my last fight is contracted with the UFC, so I would have to, unless they release me. If they release me and I wanted to do another fight, then I could fight for another organization. But no, I'm a contracted athlete with that organization, so the fight would be there.
And I guess the other thing, just one more sort of question on this topic. When we spoke to you back in July, you were saying how you really have to pull the trigger on that fight. And obviously here we are in February, and I completely understand you've got so many projects, and you've got Armagel, which we're going to talk about, and you've got ONE FC and things like that. Are you definitely going to have one more fight, or is it a possibility that, in a year or two you might think, wow, ONE FC's grown, it's huge now, my role is even bigger, maybe I won't have time for a fight?
Yeah, that's definitely a realistic possibility as the days go and all that kind of stuff. I mean, actually, coming here and working with the troops today with the SEALs and everything that I'm doing a self-defense grappling seminar or whatever. I actually flew here from Singapore, and I did a couple week stint in Singapore. I'm just doing some work that I had to do for the company. I'm going to return back to Singapore, and before I actually head back home to Cincinnati. Now, the fortunate thing is when I'm down there, I've conducted parts of my camps. I basically ran almost 2 full camps at Evolve MMA down there. So I get great training in when I'm down there. They got a couple guys on the fight team that are my size, and I get to work with them a little bit, and so I can still get some great training when I'm down there. So it's not like I'm falling off the wagon just being out of the country or whatever. Mm-hmm. But it definitely is more problematic with me having to, with all the responsibilities I have with one championship for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see that you're still on the wagon there, Rich. Now, we were talking about the UFC before. We have to ask you, you had a big Twitter update before around the time that it all happened. What were your thoughts? The big news really has been over the last month that Anderson Silva tested positive for PEDs. What went through your mind when you heard that he tested positive?
Well, I'll tell you. A lot of things. I feel bad for him, honestly. Anderson's had this long run, and then, of course, when something like this happens, the fans are going to start asking, well, how long has he been on this stuff?
Yeah.
And for him to have such a run the way that he did, and to come back from an injury the way that he did, it's a shame to think that is going to tarnish his reputation like that. That's what he'll leave his career on. Even if he doesn't leave now, that's the overriding, like the overriding factor that's going to be remembered. Much like Lance Armstrong, he won all those Tour de France's, but as soon as he tests positive for PEDs, that's what people remember is all that stuff, and you tend to forget the accomplishments that the guy had. And so I feel bad for him in that sense. And then you start wondering things like, well, how long was he on that? Like, because there are guys in this sport that they know how to play the system. They know how to take their chemicals and beat the test somehow with. And I don't know how they do it, like with masking agents. And I'm not saying that that's the case with Anderson, but people are going to start questioning that and wondering that. And it just, like, honestly, my heart bleeds for the guy, man, because to think that he came back from that injury, and I'm sure a lot of it had to do with helping himself recover from the injury and heal from that, especially at this stage in life. He's not 25 anymore. And if that was the case, he was using that to help himself recover. Here we are on the back end of this, and he got popped, and so now that's his legacy is left what it is. And like I said, I feel bad for him in that sense. But we're in a sport where we've taken a hard stance against these PEDs, and it's becoming more prevalent. I guess perhaps the testing is getting more sophisticated, that you see more and more of these guys getting caught with this stuff, and it's a shame, man, because even on my Twitter feed, I can see a lot of the public backlash, disappointment in the fans from these athletes and all that kind of stuff.
I think, I really appreciate your views on that, Rich. You sound very remorseful for Anderson. I think it's very different with Anderson popping, because usually if someone pops for steroids, people grab the pitchforks and, set him on fire. With Anderson, I think there was a big feeling of disappointment in the MMA community. I want to ask you, though, obviously you fought the guy twice. The middleweight title was on the line, and he's the one who, took over your reign as middleweight champion. So I guess, did it cross your mind at all that, hey, maybe he was juicing at that point? Is it something you thought of, or did you chalk it up to, it was just for the leg?
Listen, to say that I didn't, that thought didn't cross my mind would be a lie. And I don't know. I don't know if he was using it back when he fought me or not. Regardless, I'm not. Even if he did, I'm not sure it would have made a difference, and I don't want to blame a loss on that kind of stuff or anything. So I don't want this conversation to turn into that kind of thing. Like, well, Rich Franklin is blaming, PEDs on his loss to Anderson. Like, that's not the case.
Yeah.
But you start questioning those kinds of things. Like, somebody on my Twitter the other day, I don't know, somebody tweeted like, I've fought 8 people that have been associated with TRT. It's at some point in time in their career, and I've lost to several of them. And so you start thinking about those kinds of things, like how much of a difference that makes and all that kind of stuff. And so, that thought crossed my mind. I would probably lean more towards in the Anderson case that this was something that helped him recover from his injury and all that kind of stuff. And on the back end, he ends up getting caught doing it. And that's why I kind of took that stance. Like, I feel bad for him, but then again, if he had been using it the whole time, then It is what it is, but you have no way of proving that one way or the other. So
Yeah.
It really doesn't do me any good to like, what good is it going to do me? Even if all these fighters were using this the whole time, like, it doesn't do me any good. Their loss is on my record one way or the other. And so a loss is a loss.
Yeah, that's a great point, Rich. We've heard a lot of people come out recently and say that it's impossible to perform at the level of an elite MMA fighter, and as often as they do without using performance-enhancing substances. Being that you're a guy who's always had a very disciplined and scientific approach to your training and diet, what do you think about these statements like this? Is it possible?
If you want my opinion on things, you can go across. It's not just MMA. Across every sport. We're in an age of science. You're looking for cutting edge on everything that you do. Whether it comes, like, if you're running a 100-meter dash and it comes down to the foods you eat, the supplements you take, the shoes you're wearing, the fabrics that they're made of, the track you're running on, the wind speed that day. If you look at, for example, like sprinters, and you look at sprinters today compared to sprinters 50 or 100 years ago, just the differences in technology of the stuff that we use from tracks and materials of clothing and all that kind of stuff can make a big difference in times. And so you're looking for that edge across the sport. I would be so bold as to say that in sports, when you see people that make a big run, like somebody like me, I'm a good athlete, and I won a world title, and I defended it a couple times, and that's great for me. But when you see some athletes that are just head and shoulders above the competition, and the guys who can win championships and hold them up for years and years and years, and certain dynasty football teams that are able to win so many Super Bowls, you have to start really questioning, like, how can one athlete whose training methods are not significantly different than the rest of the athletes in that sport separate them so much from everybody else for such a significant period of time? And when you look at all these methods of trying to get ahead, whether it be the materials you're using to run in, or the supplements that you take, and where the line is drawn on what's, certain supplements are even on banned substance lists, and but other supplements are legal to take. And so certain of these supplements, all these supplements are going to improve your performance one way or another if they're effective. But somebody there drawing the line. Well, creatine's legal, but this testosterone booster is not legal, even though maybe it's just an herb or something like that. And so in this world where you're constantly trying to get a leg up, it's just that's the unfortunate byproduct of this thing. As a professional athlete, we have such a high standard to try to live up to. And not only that, but we're having a conversation about me fighting again, and I'm 40 years old, trying to fight again in a young man's sport. And you depend on things like just good nutrition and taking care of your body and all that kind of stuff. But in the end, like, my body is wearing down and wearing down and wearing down. So we've seen it before with aging athletes, where in order to keep up with the rest of the competition, you start making compromised decisions, which in Anderson's case, I guess you could kind of attribute that to.
Yeah, I love the insight, Rich. And in this age of PED tests and things like that, it's not all bad news in MMA. You're doing your part to help the athletes in not only MMA but grappling and BJJ. We're seeing this product going around now. We're seeing your name attached to it. It's called Armor Gel. It's on your website as well. Can you tell us a little bit about it? What is the product? What does it do?
Yeah, it's a great product that I teamed up with a company out of Utah by the name of American Biotech Labs, and they made this silver-based gel. And I met these guys, sat down and talked with them. They started developing this gel, and I became really interested in the product. They've run clinical trials, and basically, like, in their trials, just with things like staph and ringworm, it's shown to basically hold up a line of defense and ward off things like staph and ringworm, different kinds of bacteria that it produces, like, basically like a barrier of protection against yeast and fungus and bacteria and stuff like that. So this product, like the gel, it's a topical gel that you can put on your skin. I've used this stuff like, I'm traveling all over the world. I'm grappling in gyms in places like Thailand where it's humid and there's bacteria all over the place, and perhaps the mats aren't getting cleaned consistently and stuff like that. So I'll use it when I go into a place like that as like a topical gel that I rub all over my body that'll keep me from getting infected. I'll use it like on the back end. I had a piece of like a spot where I developed staph on my thigh, and started using this stuff on my staph, and it, I mean, literally cleared that stuff up. But it does a lot. It helps with, this stuff helps with like healing cuts. I've used it before when I've had stitches on my face and really like limited the healing time that I've had. And I'll even use it for just like funny little things, like when I'm traveling. I'll put this stuff like when I'm on a plane, for example. I'm stuck in a bacteria infestation in this fuselage of a plane. So I'll wipe this stuff on my face and kind of wipe it in and around my nose, so that it basically offers a barrier protection that helps like eliminate bacteria and all that kind of stuff just with what I'm breathing. And there's just a ton of stuff that I can use this for. It's great for the skin, for rejuvenation. I had a bad sunburn one time, used it for that. But the gel itself, it's a non-toxic gel, just made with silver, like actual silver. And you know, like silver for years has been used for eliminating bacteria. Like medical instruments are made of silver. You know, I'm pretty sure globally it's accustomed to, like when you come to a fountain, you throw a coin in a fountain. Like they do that kind of stuff in Australia.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's worldwide.
Yeah, so that actually stems from people, you know, they used to have drinking wells, and they used to take silver coins and drop them down into the drinking wells to keep the water from going rancid. Like that's what they would do with silver coins and stuff like that. And so that actually developed into that little, you know, the little thing that we do when we go to a fountain. We just slip a coin into it, but it actually came from people putting silver in their water on ships, like on when you would have these like big voyages and stuff like that, and they had barrels of water. They would put like silver in their water and stuff like that to keep it from spoiling and going bad. So, you know, silver does a lot for eliminating bacteria and that kind of stuff. But this is just a great topical gel that I use, and I literally always have a tube of the gel on me everywhere that I go. And today is a perfect example. I grappled on this military base, and I was clearly grappling on some mats that had not been cleaned in a long time. And wouldn't you know it, I reached into my bag to put my silver gel on, and I had brought the wrong bag. My other bag had my tube of gel in it.
No.
But I'll for sure be back in today. That's for sure. As soon as I get off the phone here, I'll be coating myself with it after I take my shower.
Wow, there's an image right there. Rich, I hope you weren't grappling with like SPF 30 suntan like coconut lotion. You know, guys trying to get you in like, you know, chokes and stuff. You know, one thing about this armor gel, I think you're missing one of the biggest selling points. If you're covered in silver, then technically you can't be attacked by vampires. Wouldn't that be correct, Rich?
This is true, and you know, it's funny that you bring that up, because I just started watching True Blood, the series True Blood.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never watched that when it came out, and so I just started watching that. Yeah, apparently silver is very effective against vampires. And I don't know, it may have zombie type applications as well. I would like to double check that before I actually listed this fact on the radio here.
Yeah.
So don't quote me on that. But anybody who is near any kind of zombies, if they get some armor gel, let me know if it's actually effective against zombies as well.
Well, yeah, if it works, they'll be able to let us know. If not, then we'll obviously never hear from them again. But, you know, if you're a grappler, if you're an MMA fighter, armor gel is for you. And also, if you're around vampires, if you're in Transylvania, it can also have its uses. So, sounds good, and I hear it's pleasant smelling. Now, Rich, we're going to do what we call the submission rated tap-out round. We've already done it a couple of times with you. Bunch of fun questions. We fire them off at you. And I've had the fans throw in a few as well, just for Rich Franklin.
Oh, great. All right, let's do this.
All right. First,
these are one word answers, right?
Don't have to. Well, like short answers, like first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay. Yeah, it's a short answer. First thing that comes to mind. All right. So.
All right. Haters United. Do you still have the truck that you received from the Ultimate Fighter?
I do not. I drove it around for a little while. It wasn't my style of car. It was a bit too flashy for me, so I ended up getting rid of it. However, when I did the second Ultimate Fighter, when I filled in for Tito when he hurt his back and I fought Chuck, I got a car for that as well, and I have a nice '67 Camaro with some hideaway lights and a 502 engine in it with 635 horsepower. And yes, I still have that car.
Nice.
Wow. All right. The next question comes from username Bisexual MMA. His question is the ONE FC president gig just a cover story for a CIA covert operation in Asia?
Well, if that's the case, then I'm not allowed to divulge that information. But my title is Rich Franklin VP 007. I'm not sure what that means.
Okay, well, it points to one thing, and clearly you're a 00 agent. Rich, you're one of 7 kids. You know, growing up, give us a funny story that sticks out to you growing up in such a Brady Bunch.
Oh, a funny story about me growing up in a Brady Bunch. Well, I'll tell you what. I had quite the temper when I was a kid one time, and I was playing with my sister's jacks, and she wanted her jacks back. Jacks is where you bounce the ball and you pick up those little metal things.
Yeah.
And I was probably like 5 years old, and so I wouldn't give her her jacks back, so she just kicked them all over the floor, and I got mad, and I took off my belt. And my belt had a big metal belt buckle on it, and I swung the belt at her. And her and my sister, they got scared and ran from me and locked themselves in the bathroom. They were my babysitters and locked themselves in the bathroom for like 2.5 hours until my mom came home.
Wow. That's a technique that you need to teach the Marines in the seminar. Now, Rich, this is on Twitter about a day ago. You tweeted this. Do you prefer listening to stories from old people or from little kids? This isn't a question, but since you're on the show, we just wanted to let you know that we prefer old people. Grandpa Simpson has always been one of our idols, especially when he tells his stories about having an onion on his belt. That was more of a statement for you to know what our option is with that one.
Well, I'll give you my answer. I prefer listening to stories from old people, but getting advice from young kids.
They say there's a saying, something about the only honest people are drunk people and little kids. They don't know how to lie.
Yeah. Dude, man, little kids, they give advice sometimes, and it cuts to the core, and things to them are so simple. And we have this way of complicating things as adults, and then kids will just, you get advice from a 7-year-old, and you're like, wow. I thought I learned a bunch of stuff in life, but apparently I didn't.
Speaking of learning stuff, we've been stalking you, and it looks like you've been doing some gymnastics to switch up workouts. Does this mean if you do return to fighting, we can expect Rich to do backflip triangles in his next fight? No, but it's funny that you bring that up. I was actually the other day watching some of my old pro fights before I made it in the UFC, just fighting across the Midwest in the USA. And I put this guy in a triangle. He outweighed me by like 35, 40 pounds or something, because back in the day there weren't athletic commissions. And when he picked me up to slam me in the ground, and when he picked me up, I'm not even sure how I did this, but I did this like backflip roll in the midair and landed on my feet somehow. Wow. And I have to see if I can extract that clip and maybe post it on my social media. It's pretty cool to watch.
Yeah, if you find it, tag us. We'll definitely retweet that. That'd be awesome to watch. Now, I've got another question, right? This one is also from Bisexual MMA. He's got a funny name, but he asks great questions. His question is, do you believe that the John Jones crawl towards Vitor Belfort, and I mean, he does that a lot, was inspired by your strategy talk with Matt Serra from The Ultimate Fighter Season 4?
I would definitely have to take credit for that, yes.
Hey.
Now,
it would be wrong of me to not take credit for that, so I'm just going to say yes. It was inspired by me for sure, because I'm a man of wisdom.
Yeah.
John Jones must owe thousands and millions of dollars of loyalties for using that technique. So we might have to have a chat to him about that. Now, one last question from. Sorry, go on, Rich. I was
going to say I don't know if I can trademark or copyright strategies, but either way, talk to him about that, because maybe he does owe me some royalties or whatever. Tell him to get with me on it. Let me know.
Yeah, there's a bone to pick there, no pun intended. Now, last question from Bisexual MMA. He wants to know, Dana White and Joe Silva would probably give you any opponent you want at whatever weight you want for what you say is your retirement match. We don't know if you'll ever make a comeback, Rich, but if you do, what would be one name that, would just make you really want to get back in that cage? What's one name out of anyone that you could choose? Who would you want your retirement match to be with?
For me, this doesn't really matter. my last fight, I would just love my last fight to be something like my Wanderlei Silva fight, like good epic battles. If you, especially like my second Wanderlei fight was just a great fight, man. And I would want something like that. And so in the past, I've talked about somebody like Michael Bisping because I believe that Michael and I would put on that kind of a fight.
Yeah. No, Bisping versus Franklin, that'd be awesome. Now, Rich, what's one fight you're most excited about for ONE FC 25 Age of Champions?
Oh crap! I'd have to look at the card because I've worked on 4 cards simultaneously. You got to realize I'm working on our Malaysia card coming up next week, our Manila card, and then also the Singapore card. So if you ask me a question like that, then I'm going to get things backwards, and so I should probably look at a card before I say all that.
Well, that's fine. We spoke about we spoke about ONE FC before, and you mentioned how exciting they all are. So it's definitely still worth watching. ONE FC 25 Age of Champions.
Okay, I'll tell you who I'm interested in. Honestly, is it's one of the prelims. It's Raymond Gonzalez and a guy from Cambodia. His name's Chan Lafana, and I saw him fight before, and he had his stuff together and was entertaining. He actually ended up getting disqualified from the 4-man tournament we did in Cambodia because he stomped on his opponent's face, and he was trying to claim that it was, he came around with a kick or whatever, and it just inadvertently stomped. But he's a very talented fighter, so I'm interested in seeing him get back in the cage again to see what he actually does with this fight. So I'm going to pick that prelim fight as the one that I'm most interested in seeing.
Wow, that sounds exciting. Me and Cass can't wait to check that one out. Now, Rich, we know ONE FC likes to name their events. So here are some. We have a marketing department here at the show, and sometimes we deprive them of food and beverage and seeing their families so they can come up with some slogans for our guests. And they came up with some ideas for names to call ONE FC 28 because we don't believe you guys have a name for that one just yet. So we've got 3 options here, and we want you to listen to them and tell us which one you like the most. Okay, Rich?
Okay, let's do this.
Okay, so
I'll bring this to the attention of our CEO as well.
Yeah, well, we're expecting you to make one of these official straight after you choose one. Obviously, you're the VP. You have all the pull around here. It's okay.
I was just gonna say this is great. If you guys give me 3 bad options and I have to choose one, and it ends up not being named that, then I'm gonna have a bunch of disappointed fans.
Yeah, great options might be an overstatement, but yeah, go ahead, Dennis.
Okay, so here we go. I want you to really imagine this in your mind as I say it, Rich, okay? Because I can only say it once and I don't want to repeat myself. So option number 1, ONE FC 28, who let the dogs out? Now, dogs are spelt with a W. D-A-W-G-S, dogs. Who let the dogs out?
Yeah. Who? Okay. What other way would there be to spell that word when you're referring to a fight? Okay.
Option number 2. All right. Now I want you to keep your choice. I know that's a grey one, but don't choose it straight away because there's a second option as well. This one's a bit of a slogan. ONE FC 28. We're here, no fear. Let's win and drink beer. Beer's big in Thailand. It's big in Thailand. I want you to think about that. This is a great marketing opportunity to get a beer brand behind ONE FC. I just want you to think about it. This is the marketing. That's the marketing side. Yep. And then finally, and this, Rich, this took them a couple of nights to come up with, and we think it was really worth the 48 hours they spent coming up with it. ONE FC 28. Okay, you ready for this one, Rich?
Uh-huh.
Okay, here we go. Rich's Revenge. ... Right? So for that one last one to work, you'd need to be sitting ringside with a swivel chair and a fluffy white cat. You'd need to squint and move your eyes from side to side like you're up to something, and you'd also have to have a trap door in the ring as a precaution. So, Rich, there's the 3 options that we've got for you. I know it's a tough one because they're all great, but what's ONE FC 28 going to be called? Which one do you choose?
Oh, man. You guys are giving me such a priceless selection of titles. I'm going to have to, well, just the fact that we have a trapdoor in the 3rd option and it utilizes my name, I'm going to have to go with Rich's Revenge. Rich's Revenge ... Yes. So I'm going to make this suggestion to Victor, our CEO.
Yep.
And we'll see what he says about it.
Yeah, just let us know. I mean, we'll be here waiting. We'll be waiting by the phone. So just let us know when you find out. And the royalties, we don't mind how they come. I mean, it can be check, it can be cash. We really don't mind.
Okay, gotcha.
In all seriously,
It's appreciative that you guys are easy to work with like that.
we're easy like that. You know what I mean? Yeah, all about making it easy. Guys, you can watch ONE FC 25 Age of Champions on March 13th live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. Make sure to check out Rich's new product, Armor Gel. Rich, it's always a pleasure having you on the show. Armor up and stay up your game. For more information, go to richfranklin.com and Rich's Twitter at richfranklin. Always a pleasure having you on the show, Rich.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. It's always fun doing an interview with you guys.